Childhood trauma doesn't stop when you turn 18. It has effects that keep traumatizing you. And sometimes even worse than the things that were done to you in childhood are the harmful things that even in adulthood you're doing to yourself. And these things are important to talk about because they hurt you and they make healing more difficult. So some of these things aren't such a big deal. Some of them, on the other hand, can absolutely ruin your life. I call them self-defeating behaviors. And they always start as an innocent way of getting out of pain. But if they persist and you can't find a way to change them, they will create more pain and more life problems and actually re-traumatize you in a way that totally blocks your healing. Now, thankfully, there are ways to stop doing that, to heal from the past and start living your present day life in a way that's positive and self-loving and constructive and not traumatic. You can have a life where you're happy, where you're safe, where you're loved. So in my courses and coaching programs, I teach people how to heal from the effects of childhood PTSD and how to make changes step by step, from brain healing to emotional healing to healing the ability to connect with other people. And then on the way to the really advanced levels is this: identifying and changing your self-defeating behaviors. And this is the hardest thing to face. People who aren't ready to heal aren't ready to do this, to acknowledge that today a lot of what's hurting us and holding us back, it's not our parents, not anymore anyway, but it's our own behavior. Now, it is not your fault that you were hurt like this, but now every bit of your courage is going to be needed because there are things that only you can change. Self-defeating behaviors are those things. They start as an innocent flight away from pain, but if they persist, they will create more trauma and more life problems. So the goal is to notice them first and see which ones maybe you see in yourself and decide if it's something that you want to start working on. So here's a list of some common self-defeating behaviors. All right. One is black and white thinking. Many of us are drawn to extreme views or groups or authority figures. You might notice that a little too often you're outraged about current events. And God knows the media is there to add fuel to that fire. And you might find that you're losing your freedom to disagree or your freedom to leave a particularly dominant person. You find that it's you who is dominating others, or you're slandering them, or maybe you're cutting off contact with people outside your group or with whom you disagree. All right, that's a product of black and white thinking gone wrong. Number two is neglect of your body. You might find that for reasons bigger than the limits of your income, you wear shabby clothes, or you have poor hygiene, or you don't exercise. A lot of us are prone to avoid medical and dental care, even when we can afford it. And at the extreme, this self-defeating behavior can become self-harm. Number three is the addictive use of food, which includes everything from obesity and eating disorders to a tendency to deal with stress by binging on carbs and sugar. That's really common. These foods can be calming at first, but they're dysregulating in the long run, so it becomes a problem. Number four is the addictive use of media and entertainment, video games, TV, internet, to the point that it interferes with sleep or meals or your daily routine or your relationships. Do these forms of recreation cause problems for your family or your job or your finances, right? That's something to ask yourself. All right, the fifth self-defeating behavior is dishonesty. Things like exaggerating, hiding important personal truths or preferences, lying, stealing, cheating on a significant other, tax evasion, or any kind of illegal activity. All right, that's a big one. Number six is work problems, and this includes staying stuck in unfulfilling work, as well as under-earning, going through more than your share of periods of unemployment, or more than your share of conflicts with employers and coworkers, with things like suing or getting sued, or conversely acting in a way toward people you work with that makes them feel intimidated or undermined. All right, that's something to ask yourself. All right, the seventh self-defeating behavior is blame. And this includes having a hard time seeing your own role in your problems. Victim thinking, bitterness, casually saying things about other people that hurt their reputation, believing that all your problems are because of racism or sexism or foreigners or one or another political party or certain foods or certain approaches to education and so on. The eighth self-defeating behavior is numbing with substances like alcohol or drugs. And I know I hardly need to define this or explain why it can undermine your healing, right? If that's a self-defeating behavior that you have, I would put that at the top of your list. Make that one the priority, because it's very hard to deal with the other ones when substance abuse is going on. All right, number 9 is irritability. We get angry sometimes for no reason. We get into arguments and ranting in the car, online, in comment sections, or face-to-face, God forbid. It can go so far as rage attacks, road rage, mistreating other people, and at its far end, violence. That's what violence comes from, all right? Number 10 is an attraction to troubled partners and friends. And I talk a lot about this in all my videos about healing relationships. We often perceive that we attract those people, but actually we're attracted to them. There's something cozy about being around people who are unhealthy or destructive or not into us. But those of us with childhood PTSD are often attracted to people who were themselves traumatized, including people who have serious legal or financial problems or high levels of drama and more conflict than we can manage and still continue our healing. The 11th self-defeating behavior is an unfulfilling romantic life. We might avoid dating relationships or stay in bad relationships where there's no intimacy, ostensibly so that we can avoid getting hurt, but of course the pain goes on every day. So, number 12 is the abuse of our sexuality, and this can include an overly sexualized appearance or inappropriately seductive behavior. And remember that as a result of childhood PTSD, we sometimes have a distorted sense of the messages we're sending or what's healthy for us. Some other aspects of this can be having no boundaries around your sexuality, too many people, or not enough caution and care around keeping yourself safe physically from STIs, from pregnancy. And then, of course, the use of adult material. That is something that can go way out of control in people with CPTSD. And few things can be destructive more quickly to the ability to connect and heal and stay regulated. Number 13 is fantasy, which is generally either romantic, like imagining being with somebody we're not actually with, or imagining a successful future that we're not realistically on the path toward, to the degree that we're not present. We're not in touch with reality. We're unable to take reasonable actions to go for what it is we want. And it can even go so far as obsession and stalking. All right, number 13 is a total avoidance of people, avoidance of responsibilities, avoiding participation. And sometimes this is called social, sexual, or emotional anorexia. It's a common position that we find ourselves in when relationships with people have proven painful too many times in a row. And in the old days, we called this being a shut-in or a hermit. And what I hear from a lot is a lot of people with CPTSD, they really minimize their contact with humans. Maybe their best friends are dogs or cats, and that's how they like to keep it. But I would encourage you, if you still have the desire to be connected with people, to keep pushing back against this tendency to isolate. It's a self-defeating behavior. All right, number 14 is debting. We know lots of people have this one, and it's really common for people with childhood PTSD. And while real hardship can fall on anyone and financial stability is not always guaranteed, the self-defeating behavior here is when we're not caring for our earning or our spending, and so we're living beyond our means to pay for a place to live and for transportation and for clothes and recreations. And sometimes we have a hard time with delayed gratification. So instead of setting aside a little money, we end up with some growing debt. And in some of its worst forms, it can turn into a gambling addiction, or you'll see it a lot as sort of an unsustainable get-rich-quick scheme, and it can lead to the usual problems, financial problems of foreclosure, bankruptcy, and even homelessness. All right, finally, number 15 among the self-defeating behaviors is our habit of repeating traumatic patterns. And we have a seeming inability to detect trouble or step back sometimes when trouble appears in the form of sick people or dangerous situations. So we relapse into traumatized states, which then trigger depression and rage and collapsing and reversion to old behaviors. Everyone has a few of these to one degree or another. Maybe as you were listening to this list, one item jumped out at you as a big problem in your life. And if so, that's awesome. Recognizing a harmful way that childhood PTSD has affected you means you're halfway to healing that behavior. And thousands of us can tell you that yes, healing is possible. You only need to start. Now, if you want to know what it's like when your self-defeating behaviors are healed, you're going to want to see this video right here. And this is where I talk about it. So I will see you over in that video.